And I'm glad that you're here and you're still 6 feet or more, 6 feet or less above ground, but nevertheless above ground. So that means it's a good day. It's a good day. We've got a lot to be thankful for. Well, I'm grateful that we could be here tonight to talk about something very special. We're going to talk about the mighty army within. We're talking about the immune system, the most incredible group of soldiers that God has ever raised up in the human body. And so there's so much, again, each of these subjects that we go over night after night, quite honestly, I mean, you could spend several days just going over one of these subjects. And so we have to squeeze a lot into just one presentation, but I'm hoping that sufficient information is being presented to give us a little inspiration to let us know, hey, you know what? I can do more to take charge of myself. I can do more to take charge of my health. And so as we get ready to go into our subject, as has been our custom, we want to go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. Allow me to ask for a blessing on each of us, and then we're going to jump right in on our subject, the mighty army within, the immune system. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we want to thank you so much for your gift of love, your grace, your mercy that has been with us throughout this day. And we are thankful for this opportunity where we get to learn again about how to take charge of our health. And so, Lord, I pray that you might bless everyone that is here as well as those who are on their way. And we might be edified and strengthened to know that you've given us something that if we take good care of it, it's amazing of how much it will fight on our behalf when sickness and disease tries to take residence in our bodies. And so bless us now as we study together, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, when we think about this wonderful subject about the mighty army within, there's a lot to think about, okay, when we're talking about the immune system. Let's get some education just so we can understand the immune system. The immune system is an amazingly intricate collection of specialized and not so specialized cells, organs, and structures, the mission of which is to identify and destroy foreign invaders before harm is done to the body. Disease-causing organisms such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites are detected upon entry, tagged for termination, and devoured by hungry immune system cells. You have this incredible army within, this wonderful army that all we have to do is just know what is required to feed it, to keep it strong, to keep it healthy so that it can do its job effectively. Continuing with this thought, when we still think about the immune system, I want you to think about this. To function properly, the immune system must be able to distinguish between cells and substances that belong in the body and those that are foreign and potentially dangerous. Lymphocytes, such as T cells, B cell, and macrophages, can detect gene-coded chemical features on the surface of a cell that signify self or non-self and respond accordingly. Non-cell markers, termed antigens, normally trigger an immune response. And so you have a group of soldiers inside of your body, your immune system. It's almost like you have these group of soldiers walking around and patrolling. And all they're doing is when they see all of the other cells and organisms in the body that it recognizes, it looks at you as a friend and says, no problem, there's no issue. But then there are times where a foreign invader comes into the system. And that is when the immune system says, all right, and it aims its weapons, and it gets ready to take that invader down. This is how our immune system works. And this is why when we study the immune system, I tell you, when you really study how the immune system works, you cannot help but to resonate with the psalmist when he said, I am fearfully and I am wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works. Therefore, I will praise you. We have an incredible system. We have an incredible body. We are an incredible human machinery. This is actually the white blood cells under a microscope. And I want you to watch this video and just watch how when there's a foreign invader, so I want you to watch this carefully, okay? This is so awesome. When there's a foreign invader, you see this little thing right here? That's actually a foreign invader. This is actually one of the macrophages in the system that actually identifies this foreign invader. And I want you to watch what your body is doing and my body is doing, perhaps even right now. Watch this. Chasing it down. It's trying to get away, but it can't. And eventually, it gets caught, and when it gets caught, as stated, it gets tagged, it gets caught, and then eventually it's terminated. That's literally what's going on in your body right now. And I mean, whenever I think about that, that is such a cool thing to watch. It's just like, wow. When we're asleep, when we're, doing all the things that we're doing, here goes our army within, our soldiers that are just going around. And when it sees something, it tags it and it takes it down. And that's one of the reasons why some of us can go long, long periods of times we don't even get sick or anything. Or if we get sick, we bounce back very quickly. That's kind of like me. I can go years and years without even getting a cold. But next thing you know, if I get a little stuffed up or something, all I have to do is do a few things that I'm going to show you about, and you can build your system right back up so you don't have to be laid out in bed for days and weeks and all of this other stuff. I can't wait to share these things with you. One of the things that I could not encourage you more to learn is your own body. Often we think that these things are just for medical practitioners. Now, yes, it's true. Medical practitioners should most certainly understand the body, but you can too. Even when our children, my wife and I are the parents of 4 children, ages 26, 25, 24, and 23. And, with all of our precious not-so-little ones, I remember when they were small, one of the first things that we began to teach them, once they were able to reason, we started to teach them their bodies. This is your nose. This is what you do with it. These are your eyes. This is what you do with it. This is your mouth. This is what you do with it. And we started to educate them on how to understand their bodies. And so you don't have to be a medical practitioner to understand, okay, this is something called the musculoskeletal system. And what do I need to do to make sure I take good care of it? This is my nervous system. What do I need to do to take care of it? This is my immune system. What do I need to do to take care of it? When I think about musculoskeletal, if I'm looking at that, one of the things I'm definitely going to think about as far as a nutrient. What nutrient could you think of when you think about your musculoskeletal system? Calcium, right? It's like, you're thinking about your bones. How about this one? Not everybody gets this one. How about your nervous system? What vitamin do you think would best help the nervous system? Or your B vitamins. So B12 for sure, but B vitamins in general, B12, B1, B6, all of those are going to be very helpful. What do we normally think of when we want to have ourselves a healthy immune system? What vitamin comes to mind? Vitamin C, right? Our good old antioxidants, etc. See, you're an intelligent class. You guys got this. Next year, you're going to be the one standing here presenting, and then maybe I'll come visit and sit down just to enjoy. But nevertheless, for tonight, I'm here. So, again, we want to understand our bodies. And I'm telling you, the more you understand your body, the easier it is to know what to do. When something goes wrong, you're like, okay, I need to go ahead and do this to get myself better. But we're talking primarily about the immune system tonight. Now, when we talk about the immune system, there are 4 enemies of the immune system. 4 enemies, things you really want to watch out for, that you don't want to take residence inside of your system. 1 is bacteria. 2, viruses. 3, fungi. And 4, parasites. Oh my, boy, I can tell you stories. I remember when I went to Indonesia and I was doing good. They made it very clear. They said, do not drink the water. They said, don't drink the water. I remember that was like one of my first warnings. So I was like, okay, fine, no problem. I won't drink the water. And I did good. I mean, I used bottled water to brush my teeth. I used bottled water for everything. And I did great. I finally finished my mission. I'm getting ready to go back home to my lovely wife and children, and I'm very excited. And as I get there, I go to visit a friend in Jakarta. And I go to this friend, and I go by his house. Dumb old Dwayne. Here it is that the mother came to me and said, would you like some water? And I was like, oh, yes, because Jakarta is hot, hot. Whenever you have to say it twice, it's very serious. So it wasn't just hot, it was hot, hot, okay? And so here it is that it's hot, hot out there. So when she offered water, I took it with gladness. I grabbed the water, and I started to drink it down. And as I drank it down, I was like, wait a minute. And it's like immediately I noticed the taste. I was like, this water tastes totally different from what I've been drinking my whole time here. And then I asked the mother a question. I said, excuse me, miss. I said, was this bottled water? And then she went like this. She said, oh. And so you know what that means. She says, I took it from the tap. I thought it was okay. And I said, no, it wasn't okay. And next thing you know, I was like, oh, boy. Well, the next morning came, and it's time for my flight. You're talking about a 20-hour flight, okay? And I remember sitting on that airplane. Now, a lot of you don't know this, but in my life before I became a Christian, a minister, a health educator, and all of this, before all of this stuff, I used to be a dancer, and I used to be a choreographer in the entertainment industry. I grew up in New York, and I used to dance for a lot of famous people. There are actually videos on YouTube right now where you could see me dancing next to the stars. So I got real big into all of that, so I lived a lifestyle where dancing and choreography was what I did. When I gave my heart to Christ, I didn't dance anymore. So here it is that I'm not dancing anymore, but when I was sitting on that plane, my stomach started to dance. My stomach started to do all sorts of moves that I was like, I didn't even know it could make those moves. And eventually, my stomach had me moving, if you know what I'm talking about. And before you know it, I mean, my stomach is going. It was the worst flight ever in my life. And when I got home, the doctor checked me out, and he says, you have a parasitic infection called Giardia. And I was like, oh, no. And I mean, that thing beat me up. I was sick, stomach aches, fevers, and everything. So when you think about it, this is stuff that you really want to be guarded against. Is guard against fungus, guard against parasites, guard against viruses, guard against bacteria. These are the enemies of the immune system. Now, when we talk about that, there's something called the fat cat. When we talk about the fat cat, I'm going to tell you right now, stay away from the fat cat, okay? The fat cat is not our friend. When you think about fat cat, this is what you're thinking about. These are the enemies of the immune system. It keeps your army from working properly. Fat cat, F, fatty and highly processed foods. You got to guard against that. Guard against the potato chips. Guard against a lot of the fried foods. Guard against these things. They work against our system, not for our system. You got to make it a treat, family. That's the thing I like about life. You know, it's like sometimes it's not all about total and complete abstinence. You can have some fried food ever so often, especially if you're fairly healthy. If you like some fried foods, okay, but you got to formulate it. You got to craft it in a way where you kind of make it reward-oriented. If you're going to have some fried food, it's like, all right, I want to see you go about 6 weeks of getting in your fruits, getting in your vegetables, getting in your complex carbohydrates, getting in your good proteins and fats. I want to hear about you getting some exercise in and getting some good sleep. And after you've done all of that, okay, fine, this once, you can go ahead and enjoy your little bit of chips or some French fries or whatever else the case may be, okay? Life is not meant to be miserable. You can go ahead and enjoy some of these things. It won't kill you. It won't kill you. But make sure you have on record a lot of good, healthy habits so that way you don't have to end up getting hurt. But when we're battling with diseases, especially if they can be fairly life-threatening, then that's the time we say, I'm going to fast from this. But if we start improving in our numbers, our glucose gets better, our blood pressure's getting more regulated, etc. If you start doing that, you got some weight coming off and things, okay, fine. If you want to have a moment that you get in some of these foods, that's okay. It's not going to kill you. But the key is you don't want this to be a regular part of your lifestyle, all right? So watch out for F, fatty and highly processed foods. A, anxiety and stress. Family, watch out for the A in fat cat. When you and I, that's why I'm so glad beginning Monday, we're going to be over at the Sholo Church. I'm going to make sure that we get an address to you all. We're going to be at the Sholo Church, and that's where we're going to start doing the whole week. We're going to talk about mental health. This week, we're talking a lot about physical health. Next week, we're going to talk about mental health. And you're going to see that, wow, that week might be even more important than this week, because a lot of what goes on in the mind will eventually affect the body. And so if we can get our minds right, then it's a lot easier to get the body right, okay? So when we think about anxiety and stress, we want to make sure that we have ways of getting a grip on that, where we control it, but it does not control us, because if you're constantly in anxious and stressful conditions, you're going to have those little adrenal glands sitting on top of your kidneys. They're going to be shooting out a lot of this thing called cortisol. And when that cortisol is shooting up and is chronic, it can actually, the body has to start prioritizing how to get that cortisol level down. And when the body prioritizes how to get the cortisol levels down, the body may not as strongly patrol the rest of the system to make sure that the viruses and the fungi and the parasites and the bacteria doesn't take control. So often when individuals go through chronic anxiety, chronic stress, one of the symptoms of that is they also go through suppressed immune systems. Their immune system is not as strong as it could be or as it should be. And that's why you want to watch out for the A in fat cat, anxiety and stress. The T is also something very important. Toxicity, unhealthy exposure to toxic chemicals. That's something that can also suppress our immune system. You want to make sure that if you're in any type of job, I don't know if there's auto mechanics in this room or anything like that. If you're working around diesel vehicles, if you're working around places where they give off certain fumes, or there's certain substances that you have to touch ever so often, what's your largest organ on your body? Your skin. So you want to be mindful about the things that you touch because we got little microscopic pores on these guys here. And when those things get into our skin, it gets into our bloodstream and it can negatively impact our army within. So you got to watch out for toxic chemicals. Be mindful of areas. If you work in an area where you know that there's a lot of chemicals going off, wear the appropriate masking or whatever you need to wear so that way you don't get sick. I have two friends who got diagnosed with leukemia. They were painters and all this stuff, and they got very, very sick because they were exposed to these chemicals and was not using the appropriate gear. Unfortunately, very sad. I'm a little mixed emotion tonight because a friend of mine just died. And he just died. I'm talking about the past 24 hours. He just died of cancer. And he had a very aggressive leukemia. And, you know, the question is, what was he exposed to? Because leukemia, blood cancers, it's a lot of times it's exposure to certain things that unfortunately can make this disease come to pass. So unfortunately he died. So, you know, heart's a little sad about that. But nevertheless, he died a believer. And because of that, and because I'm a believer, we look at his life as a pause, not a stop. His life was on play. When you die, your life gets put on pause. The reason the Christian believes in pause and not stop is because his life is paused right now. But Jesus promised that when he comes, he's going to wake up all of those who believe in him, and then he's going to press play again, and it's going to be a forever play. And so therefore, my friend's life is at pause right now. So I'm sad, but I'm still hopeful. And so it is that, again, be careful of the toxic chemicals that we expose ourselves to because it can suppress our immune systems. Caffeine is something a lot of people don't think about. Does caffeine affect the immune system negatively? And you know, obviously, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because maybe we have some coffee drinkers here, right? Maybe we have some coffee drinkers, right? And if we do, this is something that you want to know. So I think it's a no-brainer that alcohol and tobacco, these things also can suppress the immune system. Very toxic chemicals that we're putting in our body, okay? But what about caffeine? When we think about caffeine, take a look at this. Somebody might be saying, that looks good. Well, I would imagine it probably does, but I just want you to hold off. Don't take a sip just yet. Let's take a look at the facts, all right? Notice, caffeine has also been reported to suppress human lymphocyte function, as indicated by reduced T cell proliferation. Remember, T cells are your cancer fighters, all right? You don't want reduced T cell functionality. You don't want that, okay? It says caffeine has also been reported to suppress human lymphocyte function, as indicated by reduced T cell proliferation and impaired production of Th1. Now, it says studies also indicate that caffeine suppresses antibody production. And this is the reason why you have some people out there that's trying to teach people, listen, there are alternatives to coffee. And if you'd like, we can talk about that on our cooking class. Remember, our cooking class is this Sunday. It's at 1 o'clock because we wanted to be respectful to those who will be in church for Easter. But typically, you're out after that time, and then you can come right here at 1 o'clock where we're going to do a taste and see cooking class. We're going to make all sorts of delicious foods for you that are also very, very deep in nutrition, very healthy. And you get to eat those foods and taste them. And if you like, I can talk to you a little bit more about alternatives to our regular coffee, because who wants this? I don't want my lymphocytes to be suppressed. I want my T cells to be strong so that way it can keep my body healthy and help avoid a lot of those terrible sicknesses and diseases. So again, remember, if you want to have a strong, healthy immune system, watch out for the fat cat. The fat cat is very dangerous to our immune systems. Now, you'll remember last night I talked about something called God's plan. God's plan, G stands for godly trust, and O for open air, D for daily exercise, and S for sunshine, P for proper rest, L for lots of water, A for always temperate, and N for nutrition. Now, I want you to look at each of these laws of health. They have benefits. Notice the benefits. The more that you and I have godly trust, you're going to be relieved of a lot of your stress. A lot of stresses come in life over things that we can't control, okay? But when we know we're in the hands of one who has control over our lives, it relieves a lot of our stress. Then you have open air. Pure, fresh air helps purify even your blood. Daily exercise strengthens your white blood cells, your immune system. Sunshine helps good gene regulation. You have over 400 genes in your body. The more you get exposed to sunlight, it activates those genes. That's why we should try to get out in the sun for a little bit. Then proper rest. That's when our body repairs itself. Lots of water keeps us functioning because your bones are over 60% water. Your brain is over 70% water. Our overall body is over 65% water. So we need a lot of water. That keeps us functioning. Then always temperate or self-controlled. That's how we protect ourselves from harm. And then nutrition is our medicine. So when I think about what is the best program for me to go on to keep my immune system functioning at optimum level, there is no question about it. I want to get on God's plan. And so I want to show you all tonight how each of the components of God's plan helps build up our immune system. And after we see this tonight, my hope is that you'll be seriously motivated to say, man, I need to get on God's plan so I can strengthen this army within. Quick little story. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but I've been total plant-based in my diet. I've stopped eating all sorts of animal products of any kind, including cheese or dairy or any of those things. And it's been, I would say, about 25 years, right? 25 years since I've eaten any meat or flesh or anything like that. Now, there was something I noticed, and it was very interesting, and I can't wait to tell you about it. Before, when I was still eating animal foods, when I would get blood work done by the doctor, and they would extract the blood and then do what's called a CBC, complete blood count. And I like getting my CBC with differential, which means it lets you know the details of your blood count. So it'll let you know what kind of white blood cells, your lymphocytes, your phagocytes, et cetera, et cetera. When I used to get it, reference ranges, okay? Some of you know what I'm talking about when I say reference ranges. When you look at a reference range on a lab report, it's going to say what's normal. It's going to tell you 4,000 up to 10,000. And it's going to let you know your reference range for good immune function is between 4,000 and 10,000. So when I used to get my blood work done, guess what my numbers used to come back as? They would come back as 5,000, maybe 6,000. So my doctor, my doctor would say, Dwayne, you're normal. And I would say, great. And then I'd keep it moving. Life's good. But then all of a sudden, I started going on this plant-based diet. When I started going on this plant-based diet, and then I would get my blood work done, something happened. The doctor would take my blood. Remember, the bottom number is 4,000, and then the top number is 10,000. Do you know what my numbers kept coming back at? 3,000. And I was like, So I'd always see the little red L next to my white blood cell count, meaning I'm low. And my doctor would say, have you been sick? I'm like, actually, I haven't been sick. They were like, okay, do you feel good? I'm like, I feel great. And he said, okay, well, maybe it's your normal. And then he said this, what's your diet like? I said, I'm total plant-based. And he said, that's it. He said, vegans, that's what he called me. I don't call myself a vegan, but that's what he called me. He said, vegans typically have low white blood cell counts. You guys are more susceptible to getting sick. So that's what he told me. And I was like, oh, man, that's terrible. So obviously it makes you tempted to go back to the meat, right? So you can get better. But I said, no, not yet. So I had a friend of mine. She now rests in the grave. But the friend of mine was a lovely lady. She was known all over the world and very well respected. She helped get an organization started called Uchee Pines. Her name was Dr. Agatha Thrash. And I would call Dr. Thrash up, and I would say, Dr. Thrash, what's going on? Why is it that all of us who are plant-based, all of a sudden our white blood cells counts are getting lower? What's the problem? And this is what she told me. And when she told me this, I said, no wonder people call you a genius. So watch this. She said, Dwayne, where are you from originally? I said, I'm from New York. She said, perfect. She says, in New York City, she says, do you guys have a lot of police officers or a little bit of police officers? I said, oh, man, we got a ton. She says, tell me why you have a ton of police officers in New York City. And I said, because there's a ton of crime going on. She said, exactly. You need a lot of police officers when there's a lot of crime. She says, but where do you live now? And I said, I live in Monticello, Georgia right now. She said, where's that? I said, it's a little place in the country in Georgia. She says, perfect. How many police officers do you have there? I said, probably in total, 3. And she says, why is it that you have only 3 police officers in this little town of Monticello? And I said, well, I guess it's because we don't have much crime at all. She says, you just got the answer to your question. And I was like, I don't think I understand. I was slower at that time. But this was the point that she was trying to say. This is the point that she was trying to say. She says, when there's a lot of crime, you need a lot more soldiers. But when there's hardly any crime, you don't need a lot of police officers. She said, Dwayne, when you're eating meat, when you're eating sugar, when you're eating a lot of these foods, your body is constantly going through inflammation. It's going through various challenges. So you know what that means? It needs more soldiers to get ready to take down the invaders. That's why the white blood cell counts are higher in people that eat meat. But she said, but when you're on a diet that is whole food and plant-based, you're on such an anti-inflammatory diet, you're in such a healthy diet that your body doesn't need as many soldiers around to patrol to make sure that you're well, because you don't have a lot of bad people or bad things inside of your body. She says, that's why, notice across the board, plant-based people have lower white blood cell counts. Now, it would be different if the statistics said, if you're on a plant-based diet, you get sick more. That would be completely different. But if you're on a plant-based diet, you're going to notice that your immune system is not going to have to work as hard because you don't have a lot of bad stuff going on inside. Are y'all following that? That's the idea. So when we think about our immune system, if anybody ever tells you, oh, man, you're going to start eating all that rabbit food, you're going to get sick because your white blood cell count's going to start dropping. Tell them, good, I hope so, because that means there's less crime going on in my system. You got that? That's the idea. So anyhow, when we start talking about each of these laws of health, these laws of health put in practice in yours and my life are designed to help us have a strong immune system that the soldiers will show up when they need to. We're going to start with godly trust. The more that we learn to trust God, look at this. The results were clear as study after study showed the same thing. Short-term stress would temporarily increase the ability of the immune system to fight, but chronic long-term stress suppressed the immune system. So again, when you have more trust in God, you're going to find that your stress levels are going to go down. The more that you begin to trust God, you're going to find your anxiety levels are going to go down because now the worry factor is not there. Did you know that worry does not even give you 1% positive benefit? If ever there's a wasted energy, it is on worrying. And this is why God gives these words of comfort in Matthew chapter 6, where he'll say, if I take care of the birds of the field, if I take care of the little flowers, why would you worry? And God says, and I care for you more than I care for the birds and for the flowers. I'll take care of you. And so when we have godly trust, we don't have to worry about high levels of stress, because high levels of stress can suppress the immune system, but short-term levels of stress keeps the immune system nice and strong, okay? So this is why I want to encourage you, start learning how to trust God more. And I'll tell you what, if you don't know how to trust God more, it's okay for you to put that on your paper. Let's meet. Let's talk about that. I can show you how to do this. If you got a lot of anxiety, a lot of worries, a lot of fears, and you're constantly in a state of stress, I can show you how you can learn how to start trusting God more in a very real, practical way, not some gimmicky way. Very real, very practical, so that you don't have to worry about it. Put it on your consultation form, and I'll be happy to talk with you about it. Let's continue. Fresh air. The more that we breathe in pure, fresh air, take a look at this, versus that's not so fresh air, okay? Right? Let's take a look at this. Inhaled, look, watch this. This is pretty good. Inhaled particulates from environmental pollutants accumulate in macrophages in lung-associated lymph nodes over years, compromising immune surveillance via direct effects on immune cell function and lymphoid architecture. Literally, the more that we're in polluted areas where the air quality is very poor, it has a direct impact. That's why you're a bunch of smart people, because a lot of you did not live on this white mountain. You moved here. And when you moved here, perhaps it was the pure, fresh air, the mountain environment, etc., that made you make that move. I would say good on you for doing that, because notice this. T cells take up sugar and convert it to energy in a process called metabolism. Oxygen is essential for powering cellular metabolism and generating the large amounts of energy needed to make the millions of protein molecules required by each cell. The more you get out there in pure, fresh air and you breathe that in, it's going to do wonders for you. That's why, please, don't move out here, get a property, just so you can be indoors all the time and barely even sit outside. I know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, a lot of us, we make all these painstaking efforts to move out into the country or move out into the mountainside. And then when we finally get there, we stay indoors more than we stay outdoors. And I'm just saying, well, that's a little backwards. Try to make sure you get outside. Keep your windows open in your house. Let the fresh air come in, because it has a beautiful impact on your immune system. Okay? Beautiful impact. How about, oh yes, remember, you can also put some plants in your house. Remember that? You can put some beautiful plants in your house that brings in pure, fresh air as well. When it comes to exercise, what does exercise do for our immune system, for the army within? Not only does exercise get the immune cells moving throughout the body during activity, but it also promotes a lasting presence of these immune cells for up to 3 hours after exercise is completed. This provides extra time for the immune cells to identify unwanted intruders and keep you from getting sick. Did you know that if you exercise daily, even when you stop, you cause such a boost of immune function that your soldiers are still patrolling around your body looking for the enemy for up to 3 hours after you stopped working out? That's how powerful it is to exercise. It boosts your immune activity. It gets those immune cells working hard. A simple exercise regimen, remember, stretch for 5 to 10 minutes and warm up. Work out, do a combo of cardio and strength training. Then cool down. If you're older, I want to encourage you, please prioritize your strength training. Prioritize your strength training. The reason why you want to prioritize your strength training is because as we get older, bones can get more brittle. Okay? I would like to also recommend everyone, This is everyone. Start working on your grip strength. The reason why I want to encourage you to start working on your grip strength is because another thing that happens as we get older is we become more susceptible to falling. And you know what's the worst thing in the world when you fall? Is when you fall and you can't brace to stop the fall, the real devastating impact of a fall. So the more that you work on your grip strength, you'll be able that if you fall, you can hit that table or hit that floor and you can stop it because you have good grip strength. You have good strength in your arms, in your forearm, and in your hand area. So it's actually being encouraged now as we get up there in age. Start working on your grip strength. Another thing that I would encourage you to work on is balance. Just start doing things that helps you just practice good balance, okay? If you start doing some of these things, you'll be amazed at how much it'll help you in future life, believe it or not. Just doing something like this, just practicing good balance techniques, because another thing that we start losing is our balance as we get older. So again, keep that in mind when you're doing an exercise routine. Be intentional to execute perfect posture and good balance routines, okay? Boost your immune system. Sunshine. Take a look at this. Sunshine. Vitamin D is essential for bone health as well as muscle and nerve functions. Vitamin D also helps the immune system fight off bacteria and viruses. That's why we get out in the sun. That's why we get out in the sun. Now, have you noticed that these are low cost to no cost? You don't have to be rich, you don't have to be poor to do this. You understand that? It's like all you got to do is just put the effort in. If you just put the effort in. And that's the part that hurts me. I hate it when I have to go to a hospital to visit someone who's sick. Because when I go there, I think to myself, heart disease is the #1 killer in America and in the world, but 80% of heart diseases are completely preventable. You ever think about that? Something so preventable, why is it the #1 killer? And it's because something's happening to us in society. We are so incredibly, sometimes lazy, but also sometimes we're just not motivated. It's like, I just don't want to. But it's like, we can't live like that. That's not life. Abundant life is not about what you want. It's about what's best. That's more so what you want to train your mind to do. It's not ask yourself what you want. Ask yourself what is best. I promise you, if you put that little principle into practice that I just gave you, stop asking yourself what you want to do. We already know what you want to do. Everybody wants to get muscular and stay healthy while they sit on the couch, smoke a cigarette, and eat donuts and watch TV, right? There's a lot of people that want that, but it's not going to happen. You understand? So we got to understand, it's not about what you want to do, it's about what's best for you and I to do. If you think that way, you'll accomplish a lot in this life, let alone getting ready for eternity. There are lots of benefits from sunlight. It's not untrue that vitamin C and vitamin D actually can help to support the function of your immune system. Vitamin C enhances the body's B lymphocyte production and stops the T cells from deteriorating. Both of these are very important immune cells that are basically tasked with identifying and fighting bacteria and viruses. Vitamin D helps your body to create an antimicrobial peptide called cathelicidin, which stops bacteria, microbes, and viruses and regulates the function of your body's T cells. This is why you get out in the sun, okay? So all you got to do, if you're light skinned, I think I put it here. I don't know if well, that's the source. Let me see if I put how long. Yeah, there you go. How much do we need? Light skin, which means you're pretty much above a caramel complexion. Light skin, you only need 20 to 30 minutes a day in the sunlight. So you don't need a lot of time. Being dark as I am, I'm going to have to double the time that most of you will have to do because I have melanin in my skin, and that melanin works like a filter. So as a result of that, it's going to take more time for me to be in the sun to get the same benefit you would get in just 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to have to sit in the sun for 45 minutes or longer to get the same benefit because I got a lot of melanin in my skin. So that's why dark skin is 45 to 60. You don't use sunscreen because obviously that's going to block the rays of the sun that's going to benefit, and you only need your face, your neck, and your arms exposed. That's it. That's it. If you can get out in the sun for 20 to 30 minutes, do some yard work, read a book, talk to some friends on the phone, whatever it is that you do in the name of life. But the bottom line is try to get 20 to 30 minutes out there in the sun. That's it. It boosts your immune system, okay? If you stay in the dark too much, it can hurt you because you don't get this benefit. So I wonder, what happened when everybody got locked down? You understand what I'm saying? You start putting two and two together. It's like, wow, this program really hurt people. Because if you're locked down and now you got to stay inside of buildings and all this other stuff, well, it was funny, though. I have a news clip where Dr. Fauci was outside getting his jog on. I was like, I thought that was interesting. I said, you get to, do your thing while everybody else is locked down. That's just not cool. But nevertheless, the point is that we want to do all that we can to get out there in the sun. Get out there. Just take a moment, family, and let the rays of the sun minister to your body, okay? This also is great to take. If you're not taking vitamin D supplements, a lot of us are vitamin D deficient, a lot of us, and that will be to our harm. This is a very important vitamin. Some call it a hormone. This is a very important thing for you and I to have is vitamin D. When I got tested, this is one you can get right off of Amazon, very inexpensive. It's liquid. Liquid is always better than pills. And this thing, I got it off of Amazon. It was like so thoroughly inexpensive. One drop gives you 5,000 international units. One drop. So this bottle will last forever, okay? When I first got tested, my vitamin D level was at 35 nanograms. After taking this for about 3 to 4 months, I got tested again. It went up to 94 nanograms. And you usually want to be right at about 50 or 60 or so. So I was way above. But the point is get your vitamin D in so that way you can have strong immune function, okay? Can't talk enough about it. Get your sleep. Proper rest, folks. The more that we get good sleep, it boosts your immune system more than we realize. Take a look. The first few hours of sleep are the deepest. It's during this time that the body performs tissue growth and repair, allowing healing and restoration to occur. It's also the time when the brain, I can't wait to talk about this. If there's anybody in here who is concerned about Alzheimer's, hint, hint, concerned about Parkinson's, concerned about a lot of these neurodegenerative diseases, hear me good, one of the contributors to the development of these diseases is something called beta amyloid plaque buildup. Now, when this beta amyloid plaque buildup happens in yours and my brain, we are so fearfully and wonderfully made that when we go to sleep, as stated here, the brain clears away stuff. That stuff, by the way, is also inclusive of beta amyloid plaque buildup. The brain clears away stuff it doesn't need, making room for the stuff it does need. So literally, when you get sleep, your brain releases chemicals that helps wash away the beta amyloid plaque buildup. That's the reason why if you want somebody to get well, and if you want to avoid Parkinson's and all this other stuff, you definitely want to start striving to get good sleep and get consistent sleep because it assists our body in keeping these things away. Continuing, this is all from heart.org. So again, all of these things you'll notice, I'm showing you the science on it, not just merely, the Word of God and these type of things. But like I told you, our class that we've been doing all week is based on 3 things. The Word of God, true science, and good old common sense. And that's all we've been talking about all week. And so once again, get your sleep, family. Get your sleep, okay? Most of the research agrees that the greatest amount of healing takes place between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So if you wanted to make it a goal, what time do I want to try to be asleep? I want to be asleep by 10 p.m. Because between 10 and 2, your body's doing some amazing cleansing, healing work in your system, okay? Strive for it, family. I know a lot of us are not there, but strive for it, okay? And keep striving. You'll get there. Another thing on proper rest, Olson MD says, yes, lack of sleep can affect your immune system. Studies show that people who don't get quality sleep or enough sleep are more likely to get sick after being exposed to a virus, such as a common cold virus. Lack of sleep can also affect how fast you recover if you do get sick. So some of us, maybe you got to work right now. You have to get out there. You got to keep your body healthy. Prioritize your sleep, okay? Prioritize your sleep. It keeps your immune system strong. How much is enough sleep? Take a look at the chart. Fit yourself there wherever you belong. The term mature adult is also synonymous to senior citizen. So again, you can see how much sleep you should be getting. And that's what you want to start striving for. Again, I know you may not be there right now, but I want to encourage you, strive for it. Strive to get, for those of us adults, please, let's try to get 8 hours of sleep. Get a solid 8 hours of sleep. There are some of us that go to bed very early. For those of you who go to bed very early, good on you. Every hour, according to the circadian rhythm and how it operates, every hour before midnight is equivalent to 2 hours. So if you go to bed at 8 a.m., just between 8 and 12, 8 p.m., thank you. If you go to bed at 8 p.m., just between 8 p.m. and 12, how many hours of sleep did you get? It's literally, your body is receiving it as if it's 8 hours. So what's going to happen is you'll find that if you go to bed really early, you're going to find yourself waking up early in the morning. You'll go to bed at 8 a.m., you're going to find yourself getting up at like 3 a.m., and you're totally awake. You're not even tired. You're like awake. And people kept saying, there's something wrong with me. I'm like, yeah, there's something wrong with you. You're actually practicing a good habit. Most of us don't do that. That's what's wrong with you. You're doing great. And so whenever I talk with students in college that are cramming to pass their classes, you know what students in college do, right? A lot of us, what do? We stayed up all night studying. That was so wrong. If anything, you should have gone to bed earlier, go to bed like 8 o'clock, get up at 3 o'clock, your brain is fresh, and now you can knock out your classes. Versus staying up till 3 a.m. and getting only 3 hours of sleep, and man, you're making yourself sick before you even get up there in age yet. So it's a totally backward system, but this is the better way to get our sleep. Water. Well, let's talk about it. Drinking water can help improve the overall immunity of your body. Staying hydrated helps your body naturally eliminate the bacteria and toxins that causes infection. With the help of water, oxygen and nutrients are distributed throughout the body, and waste material is flushed out. That's why you always hear, drink liquids when you're sick. You know, we've heard that since we were children, right? Drink liquids when you're sick. Now you're seeing why. This is why. The more you drink liquids when you're sick, look at it again. Drinking water can help improve the overall immunity. Staying hydrated helps your body naturally eliminate the bacteria and toxins that cause infection. And with the help of water, oxygen and nutrients are distributed throughout the body, and waste material is flushed out. So that's why you hydrate. Parents, if your little children get sick, have them drink. They're going to want to eat a lot of stuff. Tell them you're going to eat some fruit probably, but that's about it. But you need to drink, especially water, okay? How much water do you need? Very simple numbers. Half of your body weight in fluid ounces. Spread it throughout the day. Spread it through. If you're 200 pounds, okay, you need 100 ounces of water a day. Spread it out. If you spread it out, you could do it. I've seen them do it many a times. You can get it. You start first thing in the morning. The first thing in the morning, you want to get at least 16 ounces. Get 16 ounces, 2 cups of water in, and then just spread it out throughout the day. You'll get there, okay? But half your body weight in fluid ounces. Also, this is something hot and cold. How many of you do hot and colds right now? Oh, okay. This is a great one for you. If you feel a cold coming on, right? If you feel something coming on, right? So if you do that, a hot and cold contrast shower is another way you can use water to boost your immune system. So let's talk about this. The procedure is simple and easy to remember. Just think 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 times. That's all I want you to do. As a matter of fact, how about we experiment this tonight? When we go back home, let's experiment this. Take a look. 3 minutes hot, followed by 30 seconds cold. 3 times. You'll get the best sleep you ever had in your life. I'm serious. It works like a sedative. So by simply alternating the faucets, you can boost your immune system, increase metabolism, enliven healthy circulation of blood and lymph, and promote detoxification. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn your shower on, turn your hot on. Obviously, you don't want to get scolded, so you turn the cold on a little bit, but make it nice and warm, like really, really warm, hot to tolerance. And you just go ahead and you shower, and you just, you sing your songs and stuff. You know what you do in the shower. And then you just go ahead, you're washing yourself and everything. But when it gets down to 2 minutes and 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 3 minutes, then here's what you're going to do. Turn the hot water off. And then just the cold water and just let it pour right on you. You're going to go, oh, you're going to hit the high note for sure, guaranteed. You're going to hit it. But you'll be fine. Your body will adapt very quickly. But family, and because many of us are so light in complexion, your body's going to get really red, okay? Because what's happening is you're getting a blood rush. I mean, that blood is just coming to the surface of the skin, all right? You do it in the front, you get it at the front, you get it back, and you're like, 27, 28, 29, 30, because, you can't wait for it to cut off. Once you get to 30, boom, turn your hot water back on. And then you're like, so now you're dancing again inside the shower and all that stuff until you get to minute number 3 and do the cold again. You do that 3 times. I promise you, if you do this, 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, 3 times, it works like a sedative. When you come out of that shower, you are ready for bed. Your body is relaxed. Your body is so nice and relaxed that you can just jump in your bed and literally it's just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. And you're going to get some of the sweetest sleep you probably have had in a long time. All right? But this is how the hot and cold works. So this is hydrotherapy. I love hydrotherapy. Normally, you see where it says normal? That's how a blood vessel looks normally. But when you put hot water to it, your blood vessels dilate. When you put cold water to it, your blood vessel constricts. Now, what is the science? What is happening in a hot and cold treatment? Look at this. It's so cool. Heat causes dilation or enlargement of the blood vessels of the area it is applied to as much as 40%, pulling deep congestion and impurities to the surface, thereby entering the bloodstream, thus relieving internal congestion of the organs and surrounding tissues. It dramatically increases the germ-fighting white blood cells, nutrients, and oxygen. So when you do that hot, you're activating those white blood cells. Now, what happens when you do cold? It constricts the blood vessels, squeezing out all the blood loaded with disease and waste to the internal organs of cleaning, such as the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, to be able to cleanse and revive. So this is what's happening when you do a hot and cold. So if you feel a cold coming on, or if you have a cold, one of the awesome things that you can do is a hot and cold treatment. It helps you get well quick, all right? So again, think about your hot and your cold. Nutrition. When we think about our nutrition, there's not enough to be said. I mean, man, food is your medicine, family. Take a look at this. As alluded to earlier, nutrition plays an essential role in the regulation of optimal immunological response by providing adequate nutrients in sufficient concentrations to the immune cells. In such a manner, the immune system can initiate effective responses against pathogens. The more you fill your body with nutrients, it's going to help fight against the invaders. It's going to help build up your immune system. There are herbs that you can take as well, supplements. Again, always remember to please check with your doctor before you just start taking supplements. Don't just dive into supplements, okay? But if you do use them, here's some of the top immune boosting supplements. Black elderberry, echinacea, golden seal, and of course, oil of oregano. These things are powerful in getting your immune system boosted up. But remember, always talk with your doctor before taking an herbal supplement, okay? Make sure you do that. But wow, this stuff works amazing in assisting the body to get nice and strong. Oh, definitely. It works better if you're not. Oh, if you're not on prescription meds, no, you don't. No, you don't. You're not on any medications. Because the thing we're always worried about is something called contraindications. We don't want you to take an herbal supplement and then take a medication and they don't jive. They start working against rather than for each other. But if you're not on any medications, then yeah, these things are very safe to take. Very, very safe. I want to talk to you very quickly about COVID because there's something you all need to know. We just went over how these laws of health are designed to strengthen our immune system, keep us healthy, keep us strong. Obviously, you know, COVID, there's so many opinions about it, but the bottom line is that we can't ignore that it came and it went and it did some pretty serious damage. Now, I want to show you something. We've had other flu pandemics in our country. And the worst one, even worse than COVID, way worse than COVID, was this one, the 1918 Spanish flu called H1N1, okay? The reason it was worse is because even though it killed 675,000 Americans, it killed 20 to 40 million people all over the world. No pandemic, no flu pandemic has done that much damage, ever, okay? That's recorded. So the 1918 Spanish flu was the worst. Then you had the 1957 Asian flu, H2N2, that had 1 to 4 million deaths worldwide and 70,000 in the US. And then you have the 1968 Hong Kong flu, which had 1 to 4 million deaths worldwide and only 34,000 US deaths. So, no question about it. To date, the worst flu pandemic recorded in our history is still the 1918 H1N1 Spanish flu, all right? Worse still than COVID, okay? Watch this. There was an organization in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They had a society, a group of individuals that were in charge of what was called the Medical Missionary Institutes. And there was a gentleman who would oversee it by the name of Dr. W.A. Rubel. Obviously, he was a doctor. And what happened is there was something that existed in the past called sanitariums, okay? You don't have a whole lot of sanitariums today, but if you remember, those institutes I showed you about when I started these meetings, Meat Ministry, Uchee Pines, Wildwood, Eden Valley, those are all sanitariums, okay? But we had scores more sanitariums back in these days. So I want you to watch this. What Dr. Rubel did is, notice the date, May 1919. Now that's very important because, again, look, what's the date? 1918. So Dr. Rubel's findings was all based on the worst flu pandemic to ever hit our world. You understand? Now watch this. Dr. Rubel was the secretary of the General Conference Medical Missionary Work. Now watch this. This is powerful. When the Spanish flu was wreaking havoc, there were 3 organizations that they were studying to see how effective they were. The first one was the United States Army. The second one was the outpatient hospitals. The third one was 10 of the Seventh-day Adventist sanitariums. What these numbers represent are mortality rates, how many people died, okay? So what we're about to see are how many people died from the worst flu pandemic that ever hit our world. Here we go. Let's look at the percentage for the United States Army. They had about 16% mortality rate, which means everybody who got afflicted with the Spanish flu went to the United States Army for help. 16% of them died. The rest lived. What happened with the outpatient hospitals? They did much better. The outpatient hospitals only had 8% mortality rate. So they were doing much better than the United States Army. But then the Seventh-day Adventist sanitariums, how well did they do compared to these other organizations? What was their mortality rate? Are you ready to see it? Notice. %. Only 1% of the people afflicted with the worst flu pandemic to ever hit our world, only 1% of the people died. 99% of the people lived. So obviously, those sanitariums was doing something that was pretty superior to anything else going on during their day. So now here's the next question. What were they doing? This is actually a group of people at the sanitarium. This is how they were getting exercise in the morning, okay? And what was it that made the sanitarium therapy superior? Hydrotherapy, better diet because their diet was plant-based, better and more regular sleep. They prioritized making sure everybody sleeps. Do you know how hard it is to sleep in a hospital? Do you know how it feels almost impossible, right? I remember after my surgery, I'm laying in the bed, and it's hard to get comfortable. And then finally, I was finally getting comfortable. And I was just like, oh man, I can't, I'm twitching, just trying to get some sleep. And then finally, I start dozing off. And as I'm dozing off, beep, and I was like, immediately I woke up, beep, beep. And I now have to go ahead and hit the button and like, Miss, nurse, could you please cut that thing off? I'm so sorry. We can't make it stop, but we'll just turn it off. It's going to do it again. And I was just like, good grief. I mean, so I just knew as long as I'm here, I'm not going to get any sleep. And so it is with a lot of us who have been in the hospital overnight. You don't get good sleep. In the sanitariums, they prioritized it. They would monitor them, but they did it in a very quiet way so that the people could get sleep. Less stress because all sanitariums were in the country. Sanitariums were not in the cities. Sanitariums were in country environments on acreage, beautiful scenery, beautiful land, and all those things. So immediately the environment was less stressful. Less chilling because they taught everybody how to dress in ways that promoted health. Better environment because even the doctors and the nurses, everyone there, they were Christian people. They were very kind. They were very loving. They would pray with you. They would talk with you, and so on. Also, they addressed the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the social needs of every patient. They had better medicine because they used a lot of natural remedies. They didn't use a lot of pharmaceuticals. They had better nursing and more life. This is what was going on at the sanitariums. No wonder they had a 1% death rate. And so, if you pay close attention, everything I just showed you in God's plan is exactly what they were doing in the sanitariums. And that's why when COVID came, there was a group of us that was saying, look, guys, I understand the whole vaccine thing and y'all trying to do this, but there's a better way. There's a way that people can just take charge of their health and really start living in harmony with God's plan, and this can help us ward off this whole COVID thing. And so this is why I'm so happy and so excited that today we can show people, listen, if we just simply prioritize our health, get on God's plan, we can be ready for the next COVID that is coming. Get on God's plan, okay? This is why these organizations, these are sanitariums that still exist today. These are sanitariums that still exist today. And so my encouragement is if ever you had some ailments or some challenges and you want to go ahead and get 14 days or 18 days or 21 days of the best days of your life where these people take care of you hand and foot, I would encourage you, go check out the sanitariums. They're still doing those same plans, and they're doing a wonderful job. As Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. This concludes our presentation for tonight on the subject of the army within. There's a lot that we can do to build up our immune system. And the good news is most of it is no cost or very low cost. Drink more water. Get more sleep. Get in some good exercise. Start focusing on foods that provide life to your body. If you start just making these decisions, you can strengthen this army within, and when the bad stuff comes, because it's coming, we'll be the more better for it. We'll be thankful, okay? How many of you understood what we talked about tonight? Did you learn something tonight? Good. How many of us are willing to make some decisions to say, I'm going to make some better decisions to make sure I'm going to get on God's plan so that I can have a strong army within? Are we going to strive to do that? All right. Let's strive to do it, family. Let's strive to do it, okay? God wants you to live. I most certainly want you to live. And I believe you want to live too. So let's go ahead and let's do it. Let's make some firm decisions, and let's enjoy life and enjoy it more abundantly. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and close with a word of prayer, and then we will be concluded for our evening. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, I want to thank you so much for everything we learned tonight about this wonderful machinery, the body that you made, and the special army within, the immune system. I hope and I pray that all of us will become more resolved to get on God's plan. And Lord, I pray that you might bless us. So keep us now as we get ready to leave, and may you help us to come back tomorrow as we give the announcement so that we can have a wonderful time together. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Very quickly, family, I want to remind you that tomorrow we're going to do two things. There's a special service tomorrow. There is going to be a presentation that I am going to be doing at 11 o'clock. This is not going to be here at this hotel. It is going to be at the Sholo Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is probably, I think, less than 10 minutes from here.